From here on out, you're big boss.
Welcome to MojoPlays, and today we're counting down our picks for the most unsatisfying video game endings.
Forgive them, Father. They know not what they do.
Sir, finishing this fight.
For this list, we'll be looking at infamous endings to popular video games that proved unsatisfying and controversial within the fanbase. What game ending did you hate the most? Let us know in the comments below. Before we begin, we publish new content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. Borderlands. We suppose Borderlands is more about the journey than the destination. The game barely had a plot, and even then, it was always more about exploring and collecting loot than it was about finishing the paper-thin story. Regardless, players are tantalized with the promise of some Pandora's box full of glorious riches throughout the entire game, which of course builds wild expectations. And then you get there, fight some random tentacled monster, and watch the credits roll.
The key won't open the vault for another 200 years, but I'm sure Tannis will pay you quite the fortune for it.
No loot, no nothing. Just a bunch of disappointment. It instantly deflated our growing anticipation and left us staring at the credits in utter bewilderment.
Oh, come on, get down!
Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor.
Strike out, Johnny! I cannot hold it for much longer!
This game is great, but it embodies two infamous tropes that make for a terrible ending: anticlimax and abruptness. The ending of this game sees you going up against Sauron himself. Now, what could possibly be more epic than going mano a mano with Sauron, perhaps the most famous villain in fantasy history? It certainly sounds amazing, but this game managed to bungle it with an unchallenging, straightforward boss fight and a horribly anticlimactic quicktime event. It's pretty telling that fights with various war chiefs and their minions were more exciting than the one with the Dark Lord himself. Why developers continuously cop out by utilizing quicktime events, we have no idea. Fable 2.
Soon all Albion will be filled with gratitude and praise the name of this great and selfless hero forever.
Now, if you want to talk about anticlimactic endings, let's talk about Fable 2. This ending sucks for two primary reasons: the horrible fight with Lucian and the uninteresting moral choice that ends the game. As for Lucian, you literally just walk up and shoot him while he blabbers on with cliches about being evil.
Or hero.
How exciting! That wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't for the bland moral choices. You can choose to acquire lots of money, resurrect your family and dog, or bring millions of people back to life. It's a lame choice, utterly lacking in moral dilemma, emotional weight, or narrative satisfaction. For a game filled with player agency and choice, to end on this was just horribly disappointing. Far Cry 5.
Forgive them, Father. They know not what they do.
The ending of Far Cry 5 has certainly left an impression, and as incredibly divisive as it is, it will be talked about for years to come. Many players took issue with the game's final twist, as it ends the game too abruptly and completely ignores player agency. And while it was foreshadowed, it also proved a little too unbelievable and out of nowhere for some. As it turns out, the Nutty Joseph seed was right all along, and the outside world spirals into nuclear war. An atomic bomb explodes and kills all your allies, and then you're taken to a bunker and held captive by Seed, who gloats about his correct assumptions. And you thought Voss's demise in Far Cry 3 was disappointing.
Citra, I won.
Final Fantasy X.
I love you.
This is obviously a legendary game and rightfully hailed as one of the greatest and most influential of all time, but there's no denying that the ending is lackluster. There's a big difference between ambiguity and lack of resolution, and unfortunately, Final Fantasy X falls into the latter camp.
You Yuna!
Players learn that Titus wasn't even real, and the ending sees Yuna being sad as Titus disappears. Maybe. Who knows? It was certainly emotional, but it was also a little manipulative, and it had us heading directly to the internet and asking, wait, what exactly just happened? The ending was so empty that Square released Final Fantasy X-2, making 10 the first Final Fantasy game to receive a direct sequel.
It's showtime, girls.
Halo 2.
Would you like to see the relevant data?
Tartarus, the prophets have betrayed us.
Cliffhangers are tricky to nail. Do it right, and you have a fanbase endlessly discussing it on the internet and salivating for answers. Do it wrong, and you risk ticking off a large segment of said fanbase with a lack of resolution. Halo 2 contains what may be the most infamous cliffhanger in gaming history, as Master Chief confidently declares that he is finishing this fight before the screen fades to black.
Sir, finishing this fight.
Not only was the game's campaign painfully short, but the ending made it seem borderline incomplete. This felt less like a tantalizing and well-planned cliffhanger, and more like a story that was artificially cut short before it could properly conclude.
Where would someone go to activate the other rings?
Why, the Ark, of course.
Fallout 3.
It was your mother's favorite passage. It's from the Bible. Revelation 21:6. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end.
While the generic ending of Fallout 4 was certainly disappointing, it looks like a masterpiece compared to that of Fallout 3. Open-world endings are very tricky, as they must conclude the story in a satisfying and logical manner while also finding a way to keep the player playing. Bethesda straight up said, nah, forget that, and made the player sacrifice themselves to save the wasteland. It was not only totally illogical, but it ended the story too swiftly and prevented the player from continuing. You didn't make a separate save file? You focused on the story first and figured you'd explore later? Too bad. Now you have to start all over because you're dead.
All right, come on. Let's go see if your little friend Amada wants to play.
Batman: Arkham Asylum.
You had to spoil everything, didn't you? Beating up Bane, feeding Scarecrow to Croc, slapping around Harley, my hobby, by the way.
As great as Arkham Asylum is, the generic ending totally ruins the long-established relationship between Batman and Joker. The Joker has never been a brawler. He's always relied on his psychotic, warped, and fiercely intelligent mind. He gets off on teasing and one-upping his greatest nemesis. Physically fighting him would be dumb enough, but Arkham Asylum upped the dumb factor and had the Joker pump himself full of serum, which greatly enhanced his size and essentially turned him into Bane.
Let's give the room something to talk about. Two freaks in a fight to the death.
It's the most cliché and derivative boss fight imaginable, and it's a real shame that it came at the expense of the Joker's character.
They never.
Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Much has been written and analyzed about the ending of Metal Gear Solid 5, with most longtime fans considering it a disappointing conclusion to the seminal gaming franchise. Most of its problems stem from Kojima's sudden departure from Konami and the famously missing content.
Now do you remember who you are? What you were meant to do?
Many story threads were left unresolved, and fans suspected that the game was released in an unfinished state. This was seemingly confirmed with the reveal of Episode 51, which was showed in the collector's edition in an incomplete form. This chapter both provided closure and wrapped up an important plot thread. You know, things which should have been in the game. Konami later stated that they never intended to include Episode 51 in the finished product. Mass Effect 3. There may never again be a game ending as universally tarnished as that of Mass Effect 3. People who weren't there can't truly comprehend how disappointing this was. The first two Mass Effect games were considered shining examples of the medium, containing an unimaginably ambitious story unlike anything seen before in a video game series. And in the end, countless impossible decisions and literally hundreds of hours all meant nothing, as the story essentially ends the exact same way for everyone. No one was expecting 100% personally tailored cutscenes and situations, but we expected a little more than press one of these buttons. And that's not even mentioning the numerous plot holes, out-of-character behavior, the lack of a final battle, and the mangling of the lore.
Tell me another story about the shepherd.
It's getting late, but okay. One more story.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from MojoPlays, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.